Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Jacob Dahlin here. I'm your host. And today we have Samuel Larsson, or what I believe is Sammy Larsson is what the nickname is, right?
That's right. Thank you for being
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, and let's get this going.
This episode is brought to you by Scandlux, your home for Scandinavian luxury products for the U.S. market. You can find us at scandlux.com.
Yeah, so I got introduced to you through Mike McCarthy, who runs Future Stars Academy. We'll talk a little bit about that camp, not because he gave me the plug here, but because we've had several players that are playing in here in the U.S. or in the juniors over here, and it's a little bit of a common thread of players that have come through that system or that camp to find over here. So, but why don't we start a little bit? Who's Samuel Larsson?
Yeah, who's me? Yeah, I'm 19 years old. I'm an 04. This is my first year playing in the United States, and yeah, we got a dog here as well saying hello.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's my first year playing in the United States, 23-24 season. Up until this year, I played in Sweden. I played J18 Division 1, J20 Division 1, and 1 year in J20 Regional.
Yeah, and originally from Segeltorp.
That's correct.
So understand, based on your accent, a little bit around Stockholm, but Stockholm has so many of these smaller hockey teams or hockey clubs. Where geographically, if you describe it around Stockholm, is Segeltorp?
So Segeltorp is located south of Stockholm. It's about 20 minutes from the city center, I would say. It's close to the highway, and it's the rink is located in a big shopping area. So if you say,
I'm pulling it up here now, close to Huddinge, Botkyrka.
That's correct. So we had Huddinge is like the local rival, including and also like Flemingsberg, and so we had a lot of local rivals in the area because Stockholm is. You have a lot of hockey teams in the close area, and it laid up for a lot of hot games,
Yeah,
to win the clubs.
So I guess we would call Segeltorp a suburb of Stockholm Centrum or Central Stockholm, like many of these other ones, right?
Yeah, I guess you can call it that.
So let's start there. So so I've got elite prospects pulled up here. Defenseman, 5'10", 185. Is that still fairly accurate?
That's fairly accurate.
Not 6'2" anymore. Not 6'2" and 210.
No, 5'10" is correct. Maybe I'm a little bit lower than 185, but I think I'm around 176, 177, depending on the day, But so maybe a little bit lower on the weight, but I'm fine with 185.
So what I thought, because the main topic today, and we'll get to it a little bit later, a couple of things. I want to talk about Future Stars Camp and how you ended up coming over here. Main topic that I want to talk about is NCDC, where you're playing in Islanders Hockey Club now in Tier 2 juniors here. Because last episode that was just released, of course I have a little bit of a bank here now of episodes that I've recorded, but we just released a series of episodes of players over here that are playing, Swedish players that they're playing right now or have played in either North American Hockey League, BCHL, USHL, or like Gustav Blom, who's now playing in college. But we haven't had anybody on to talk about NCDC, which opens up this kind of door of USPHL, and which NCDC is part of, and not part of USA Hockey. And we want to get there as we go. But before we get to kind of the main topic, and I sent you a couple of bullet points, and I put on there. So when we're recording this, we're in November, and we just finished up the TV Puck tournament which I think I didn't pay too much attention to it. My district, Dalarna, ended up going to the playoffs, but ended up last in the playoffs, unfortunately, this year. But Stockholm North, did they win it?
Stockholm North won the TV puck this year.
Yeah.
So
But
against
Småland,
Sörmland, I think.
Yeah.
Sörmland or Södermanland.
Okay, I didn't pay attention too much to it this year. But you didn't play in the TV puck tournament.
I did not. So a lot of people say that Stockholm is maybe the hardest district to get into. I don't know about that, but we were a lot of players from Segeltorp who made these camps. The 04 group in Segeltorp was probably one of the best groups we've ever had, and I think we were 7 or 8 players, maybe even 9, who came to the last camp before the TV puck, and that was as many as Djurgården has, which is the main club in southern Stockholm. So I made the last camp, but then I got cut. So I didn't play the TV puck.
So, and the reason I go there to start off with is, you know, a lot of people think, oh, I have to make the TV puck tournament for the district, and if I don't, then you know, life is over. My hockey career is over. But yours is not. You're still playing. So, which, right. You know, we've had some other players on here on the podcast that proves the point that it isn't over. And I think it's an important point. And it is very, very tough competition as well. So how did that affect you? Because I would imagine right about the same time as when you start looking at hockey gymnasiums and where am I going to go? Am I going to go somewhere else, or am I going to stick around home? And I'm looking at you played in Segeltorp, you stayed in Segeltorp through juniors, and then we'll talk about moving to Nacka the last season there. But how did that affect you not making this TV puck tournament in your choices?
I think like when I got cut, I was disappointed. Of course, that's always the case. But you know, it was a long time ago, so most of it I don't remember. I don't think about. Other than that, I was pretty clear all throughout it was my U16 year. So the next year would be my first year in hockey gymnasium or high school or whatever you want to call it. And it was pretty clear all that season that I maybe didn't want to go to a hockey gymnasium. I wanted to go to a normal school,
which is a little bit unique in Stockholm, right?
It is.
There's not. So if you lived in Skövde, they have a LIU. So if you're if you're playing hockey and you go in a gymnasium, you're probably going to go in the hockey gymnasium. But in Stockholm is a little bit different, right?
That is correct. Like Stockholm has a lot of high schools all around the area. You can choose whatever you like. You have so many possibilities to choose from. It's you have maybe too many schools to choose between. So I chose one in the city center, which I liked very much. I liked the teachers and I liked the area, the school itself. So I don't really think that the TV puck affected me that much, to be honest with you. So
leaving 9th grade and going into gymnasium, what was your area of study?
My area of study became economics and law.
Okay.
So that's what I've been studying for 3 years prior.
And it's really, really strange. So every person that I have talked to that is playing in the US juniors, not a single one has chosen the simple path from an academic standpoint. It's a little bit of a common thread here. So I'm assuming that you come from a family where education was pretty important, and
that is correct. You know, I've always been told that if you don't have an education or you don't put a lot of effort into your education, it's never going to work out in the long run. It might work out in the short run, but in the long run, it's not going to work out. And if you want to continue playing hockey, like, you need to pay attention to the education. And which I've done, to be honest with you, and I think I'm glad about that now.
Yeah, and then you graduated, so you did 3 years, and then so the hockey then is not necessarily in the same organization, or the hockey with Segeltorp is with the club, and then you got the school over here, no affiliations whatsoever.
No affiliations whatsoever. So, I went home from school and I went to practice, and that rolled on. Played J8 in Division 1 with Segeltorp, and this was also during the COVID era, so it was a little bit of a different time. The season got shut down, and I think the first J8 in season we played maybe 6 or 7 games, and
that must have been 2021, right?
Yeah, the 2021 season. That's correct.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what I'm looking there as well.
So we played a few games, and then they shut us down. We couldn't practice at all. So I know that we had training outside in the winter. We were running together, and it was icy, and we had fun. At least we had something to do.
Yeah.
Outside of sitting at home having school in front of a computer, and yeah, it wasn't really until next season that we played hockey again competitively.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this, because, in your resume, you don't come from a J20 national background, right? And so let's talk about this for those who may not know that in Sweden, in junior, so if you look at J18, there is no J18 national, but you have Division 1 and you have region.
That's
and
correct.
Then on the J20 side, you have Division 1, you have region, and then you have national. It used to be called super elite, elite, and I guess Division 1's always been called Division 1.
Division 1's always been called Division 1. I don't know exactly why they changed it,
but because there is so many because there are so many teams in Stockholm, even Division 1 is very competitive, and region is very competitive, right?
I would say regional is very competitive. If we talk J18, that's competitive. That's the highest level of hockey you can play.
Yeah.
In J18, and during the spring, I think it's the 8th best team or something that plays. Then it's called J18 national. But that was never something I did. I played J18 Division 1, and to be fair with you, I would say that some teams are competitive. We had, it's some teams were hard to play against. It was fun to play against, but other teams wasn't it? It was 10-1 games. And
yeah. And how was that? And I'm assuming too that the teams in Stockholm, they don't travel that far away,
no,
other than traffic. But so did you guys? How did you get to the games? Did they still have team buses?
No, I know Segeltorp is it isn't a very it isn't a club that has a lot of money, so we had to take the car to every game. My parents drove me up until I had a driving license, so I'm very grateful for that. But I think the furthest away game that we had was maybe an hour away in Nyköping, which is further south from Stockholm.
Yeah,
it was the furthest away that we had to go. Other than that, it was pretty close by, and I think that might be a good part about Stockholm, and it definitely was a good part for me because it was easier to focus on school and all that.
Yeah,
not having to worry about not being able to do it because of time issues.
Well, and I mean, I think that's certainly when we talk about where you are now, you got a little bit more travel between games. But I know a lot of junior teams that have to take they got a game on Tuesdays, and it's a 7:00 game, and you may have to miss school some depending on what your class schedule is, because you're 3-4 hours away, and you have to take the team bus to go there. It's pretty cool if you're 19, 20 years old, and you get to hang with your buddies on the bus on the trip. But there's advantages to that in Stockholm, and that everything's pretty central and close. Next question. I see on the 21-22 year, so did Segeltorp, so you're in here for Division 1 and region half the season?
Yeah, that's the system that Stockholm the district of Stockholm has for J20. So this was my last year of J18. I was the captain of our J18 team, and it went well. And I played with J20 alongside J18, so I had a lot of hockey going around, and it was a lot of hours spent in the rink. But I loved it every day. And so the system Stockholm has, the district, is that the best team of Division 1, or at least they had it this year, the best team out of 3 groups in Division 1 was directly qualified for J20 regional during the spring. So J20 regional after Christmas, or maybe a little bit before Christmas, but in the second half of the season at least.
Yeah.
So the system is that the 2 last place teams in J20 regional are relegated automatically to something called J20 All-Ettan, which is the best teams of Division 1 and these 2 teams from regional. So then they have the best Division 1 teams is promoted to J20 regional, and the 2 other first placers in Division 1 battle it out in a best of 3 series to take the last spot.
Yeah.
So I know that Segeltorp, we were going down to Gotland, which is it's an island. You had to take a boat there, and just before we got on the boat, we had another game going on in the other group, and if one of those teams won, we would be secured for a spot. So just before we left the harbor, it was just, they won. We were secured for J20 regional, and of course we were very happy and had a good time down on Gotland. And we came back and we were playing J20 regional with Segeltorp, which was a big accomplishment. It was the first time I think Segeltorp had a junior team in regional, or we were close actually. My U16 year, when this was the first year that we had J18, it was the 2021 season, or no, 1920 season, and we went to the last step before regional, J18 regional with J18 team, but then COVID closed us down. So 21-22 was the first season Segeltorp had junior teams in the second division.
Yeah, and that's a little bit different. So in Sweden you have north, south, east, west, and some teams. I'm looking at so J20 region south as an example. They have 12 teams in J20 region, and after Christmas the top 6 moves on, and the bottom 6 stays, and it's different in every region. Last year they had 11 teams, and if I pulled up J20 region in west, it may be different than east and the north. So they come up with these little different rules. They're set in the beginning of the season. Everybody knows how it is, and there's reasons behind it. But I think the main thing is the ability to advance up and to be relegated down.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to have that, and I think it's good to have it, especially for the Division 1 teams that, we have something to strive for, and we're gonna get there.
The flip side of that, though, the flip side for you guys was you were playing in J20 Division 1. Now you got moved up to region, and you're playing against much better teams.
Yeah, I think we noticed that. Yeah. I think we had 18 games that season. We lost 17 of them.
Yeah.
So, mentally it wasn't a very fun time. I know that we Almtuna, who plays in national now, they were promoted that year. They were playing in regional that year, and that's about a 1.5 hour, 2 hour drive up to Uppsala. We had them on a Friday night. They were the best in the group, like by far. They were best in the group. We had them on a Friday night at like 8 p.m. I think, and we were last in regional. And before we even went up there, we knew that we were gonna lose the game. It was just about keeping the numbers down.
Yeah,
which we actually did in the first period, but we lost that game 7-1, I think, or 8-1 or something like that. But I think for me at least, it was a good time to know that I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in a spot where I'm always losing. Like, I need to work better. I need to work harder.
Yeah, and let's
And
go there because the following year, let's see, that is the following year, 22-23, which was last year, made a switch to Nacka.
that's correct. I think I realized like, yeah, I don't really have a future here in Segeltorp, it was a hard truth for me because I love Segeltorp. It's the club in my heart, you know.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up playing hockey. That's where I learned to skate. That's where I have some of my best memories playing hockey, you know.
So talk about that a little bit, because so you're conflicted here, right? But you're 18, I guess, at that time, 17, 18, and you're starting to make your own goals, and everybody on the team are some are having a girlfriend, and some are starting to work part-time, some have finished gymnasium, and you're in this period of time of you're too young for this video, but it was a song that Twisted Sister used to have, and they said, "What do you want to do with your life?"
Yeah.
But it comes to my mind, like at that time of your life, and it's pivotal, and it's back in those days, that was the time that I decided I'm leaving for the US, and I've stayed here since 1993.
Yeah.
And in your case, it's kind of like, all right, I'm good. School is good. I've got my education, or at least the gymnasium or the high school part. What do I want to do here? And what do I want to do? So you have, what do I want to do with education? What do I want to do? What do I want to become as a profession? But then you also got this thing about hockey that you love, and how to talk about that in terms of your decision then to split from where you grew up and try something new.
Yeah, I think that I felt like if I wanna try something with my hockey, I need to move places. Like I said, even though I loved Segeltorp, I loved the coaches we had, especially like the physiological coach. He's very good. I still have him today. And I emailed a couple of clubs in the area, and NACA responded and another club responded. So I went on to have a tryout with them, both those clubs, and one of them said yes directly. I think it was Tyresö Handviken, or Handviken as they called.
Yeah.
They said, yeah, you're welcome. And NACA said, we can have you on a tryout for the summer during our after season.
Yeah.
And then it was like, do I take the offer that I have secured, or do I try at NACA? And Mike, Coach Mike from Future Star, he also played a little bit of this because I knew him since my first J18 year, but that's another story.
Well, I want to go there too, because let's finish your thought and then we'll talk about Mike.
Yeah. So I went with the NACA option. So I had a tryout with them. I practiced with them and I trained with them all through the spring and to start the summer. And right before we had a Cooper test, which is a 3-kilometer run, or about a 2-mile run if you're in the US.
Yeah.
Right before we ran that, the responsible person came to me, or he's called Magnus Ramström, and he came to me and said, congratulations, you're on the team. Which of course was a very big relief, and I felt very happy. And I knew that I was in a place where I was at one of the top teams in the area, and everything was great around the club. And so it was really nice. And so I started the 22-23 season with NACA.
Yeah.
One step up in J20 regional.
And you've already kind of, so at that time in your career, you're kind of looking at, you were with a team that was, advanced. You had success, but they didn't have the squad to be able to compete in region. But now you are moving on to a team that has the squad to be able to compete in that level. It's established, bigger organization, more structure, probably, right?
Maybe a little bit. NACA is also a club that, from what I know, doesn't have a lot of money, so we make good use of what we have. And also regarding the squad thing, I think that a lot of Division 1 teams have the squad that's capable of competing good at a regional level. But the thing is that it's mentally.
Yeah.
Some of the players I know in Segeltorp, they said, I don't want to play here. Like, I don't want to play in regional. It's too much work, or so to say.
So what do you think that is? Why is that? Because it is what it is, right? It's just different in their approach.
Yeah. That's the main thing. I think it's a different approach. We had a lot of players in Segeltorp that were like, yeah, we want to compete, we want to do our best. But if you have a few players that say, I don't want to do this is too much work, and doesn't go 100% in practice, or doesn't show up the way you think they should show up.
Yep.
It affects the whole team.
Yeah. And it's what I always refer to as commitment. And if you have a committed individual, committed team, committed to the process and to the goals, you can achieve a lot more. And some players have different commitments, and they may be more committed to their job. They may be more committed to their relationship that they have, and it's really that time of a young person's age. It's a fighting struggle between, and you have the natural thing. Hockey's hard, getting up and practicing, and it's not just going out there playing games, and there is a different level of commitment that is required to compete in region versus Division I, no doubt.
Yeah, that is correct. So I went to NACA then, and first time I got my own locker room, my own stall. We didn't have that in Segeltorp, so it was a little bit of a special time for me. It was I don't know, I felt like I was in the right place.
Yeah, that's awesome. And at that time, so parallel that to academics, had you already finished gymnasium, or is that your last year at gymnasium?
Last year. But that worked out really well. NACA was actually closer to my school than Segeltorp was, or at least it was easier to commute there. The bus stopped right outside my school, and that went all the way out to NACA, which is east from Stockholm.
Okay.
And it stopped like just outside of the rink. So a lot of days I brought my hockey stuff with me, or like the stuff I needed for practice. I took them to school, and then I took the books and computer with me. And I was sitting at the rink doing the studying that I had to do.
Yeah.
So it worked out fine.
All right. Well, let's switch over to Mike here. So because it has a direct correlation to how you ended up in the U.S. Talk about how. So had you gone? For those who don't know Mike, how would you introduce Mike to those who don't know?
How would I introduce Mike? That's a good question. I think he's a coach. He's originally like a goalie coach, I think, from the US, who's moved to Sweden a couple of
Worked
years
with
ago.
Björn Budeling with
That's
BB
correct.
Goalie Academy.
Yeah, which is another goalie coach, and he's responsible for a showcase in Sweden called Future Star Academy Showcase, which is in the spring after the season ended. And he has a lot of connections in the hockey world, and he's a fair guy. He has strong opinions, and he's not afraid to let people know about him. And I think that's a good thing. He's directly with what he says, and yeah.
So how did you get introduced to him?
Yeah, this is a very strange story. And it's going to go back to my first year in Segeltorp J18. We had a goalie there who was part of BB Goalie Academy. And they had practices up in Väsby, which is north of Stockholm. It's about a 45-minute drive from where I lived. And one day, or when they had practice, he said that he was coming, but he said it too late. So they didn't have enough shooters for the goalie practice. So Mike told him, yeah, you need to bring a shooter from your team, which would be like a one-time thing, because the shooters up there were regional players, and they were really good players. And I came from J18 Division 1. I didn't have a good resume by any means. And So he asked me, "Do you want to come?" And I said, "Why not? I'll come." So I went up to this rink north of Stockholm and had a shooters practice. And afterwards, Mike came to me and said, "We're doing this again in 2 weeks. You're welcome again. I'll text you." And that's the way it is essentially. So I went up every 2 weeks, every Saturday night. It was between like 8 and 10, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 7 to 10 every Saturday night, every 2 weeks. So it was a big commitment going up there, but I loved it. I had a great time, and I met a lot of great people, and I played with a lot of great people up there as well. I wasn't necessarily the best player out there by any means. There were a lot of better players out there, but I don't know. I guess Mike liked what he saw, and I was able to come back, and I did that for 2 years during COVID, and my second year in J18 Division 1 with Segeltorp, and we kept in touch. I went to the showcase, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. So was he the one who then got you interested in coming over here to the US?
Maybe a little bit. I know that.
Or was it the group that, I mean, there's a lot of people in his group that are kind of drawn to that, right? So I guess the chat in the locker room is, "Hey, I'm going to play NAL, or I'm going to go play USHL, or I'm going to go play NCDC."
Yeah, we had a few people. For example, Gustav Blom. He was there, so I heard him talk about the NAL and all that. But I think the college route for me, I was introduced in Segeltorp earlier with the 04 group, because the GM at the time, who's the GM today as well, Jürgen Wienborg, he has a son who played at Michigan for a couple of years, and I knew that, and so I think that's the way I got introduced to the college route the first time. And I saw like, this is something I want to try.
Okay.
But so Coach Mike, a future star, was the first real step towards that goal, I think, because I didn't have any connections at all.
So you had this, someone planted the seed, and you have this interest, and that becomes a goal, and Mike comes in and says, "I've got the path."
A little bit like that.
And said, "This is what it is." And you can't just say, "I'm going to go play." I mean, isn't that the truth? I mean, you can't just say, of course, I was in the same boat back in the day of having blinders on, and I'm saying, "I'm going to go to college in the US."
Yeah.
Right. And on the other hand, when you peel the layers of the onion a little bit, you can't just go and do that. You have to be in a position to open up. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to go from here to here," and that's just the way it is. There's a lot of steps to it. So how did he explain those steps to you?
He said that, a lot of players, they hire agents or advisors to get over to the States. And he said that's just unnecessary, mainly because it's a commitment regarding money. It costs a lot of money, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you get a spot anywhere. And I think I didn't know at all how to get over. So he said, "You need to get to juniors, and from there you need to perform, and then a college might see you." And something like that.
Did you know anything about juniors before that?
I can't really say I did.
Which is pretty common. Right?
It is. I think a lot of people, like some people, may think that you can go directly from Sweden to college, and it is true for some players. Some players go from, and that is from J20 national most often. They go directly from Sweden to the US, but this is uncommon.
And
not a lot of players do it.
And even the ones that are recruited and have a college commitment from J20 national, the college teams will say, "I want you to play at least 1 year in the USHL or something." I mean, if you look at a good example of that is Dubuque Saints, which has its Swedish GM, Sammy Larsson, who recruits Swedish players all the time. But a common thing, if you go to Elite Prospects and pull up the Swedish players in the last few years have played in Dubuque, when you then pull up their elite prospects profile, these guys are Swedish national team type players that are going straight over there. But that doesn't mean that there aren't, you have different levels of college. Yes, playing in Michigan is a little bit different than most places.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
If you're going in Michigan, you may be playing in the NHL within a next few years.
Yeah.
So how did you end up then? So let's fast forward the tape a little bit here. You go to the academy. There's a lot of people. Explain that too, because there's a lot of people that when you go to the Future Stars Academy showcase, which is a fun tournament, right? You're divided up into teams, and but there's a lot of people in the audience it's a concentrated group of players that are there. They're kind of commonly, hey, I'm interested in going to the US.
Yeah, that is true. I think I've been to 3 showcases. I was the first 18 year, my second year, and this last year. Maybe the first one was a little bit unnecessary, but I got a hang of it. I knew what was going around it and how it worked out, so we have different teams. I think we're 5 teams, 6 teams maybe. Get 3 lines in every team, and everybody is competing for the interest of the scouts that's watching.
Yeah. And how were you contacted? And what was the buzz in the locker room of people that were getting interests?
I don't think we talked about it too much in the locker rooms. We knew that a lot of people were like, they were going away to talk to scouts or to talk to people. We knew it, and I don't know, but we didn't really talk about it too much. We just said, yeah, who was that, or something like that.
But you also know in that tournament who the players are. I mean, you know who the top dog is, and you know that they get more interest than the person that is new.
Yeah, that is true, and you just have to accept that. The only thing you can do to change that it's just perform your best and see what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
that's the only thing you can change.
So how did you get? Did you talk to a lot of different organizations, or how did you end up with Islanders?
So the first year of the showcase, I only talked to 1 team in the Eastern Hockey League. Second year, I talked to a few more teams. I did not talk to the Islanders. And this third year, I talked to maybe 8 or 9 teams, which was mostly in the USPHL Premier.
Yeah.
And about a few days after showcase, that's also the thing. Like a lot of people like me, they don't get offers until a few days after showcase.
Yeah.
So the Islanders or Mike sent me a text like, yeah, this coach wants to talk to you. So he sent me the number to Coach Kirkostas here at the Islanders, and we had a talk, and he offered me NCDC spot. I thought about it for a few days. It's a big commitment. I was waiting to see if anybody else would text me, but like Coach Mike said, like it's he texted you almost right after he started watching, so that's a good sign. So I took the offer, and I went over. And the funny thing is that all this comes back to the coincidence that my goalie in Segeltorp 18, he texted late that he was coming to our practice, and it's a little bit how I got where I am today.
It's serendipity, and that's just kind of how it is. I mean, the hockey community is very, very small. And what you'll find in the next 10 years is that it's smaller even than you thought it was, even on a bigger scale, because these kind of 6 degrees of separation kind of thoughts comes in, and but I think that the common thing though is if you don't take that step, it would have been easy. Someone said it's easy to do and easy not to do. So it's easy for you to say, sure, I'll go. But it could have been easy to say, 8:00 in the evening, 45 minutes away, I'm not even going to skate. I'm just going to shoot. And you could have said, no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't have been asked again.
No.
And you probably, I mean, you would have had, did you have the opportunity to play one more year in Sweden?
This year, yeah.
Yeah, so you could have played one more year, but that probably would have been it. And
yeah, I mean, my second plan was to study in Sweden and maybe play hockey on the side. But I got this chance, and I said, why not take it? I mean,
yeah.
I'm gonna regret it a few years from now if I don't take it. So
yeah. All right, so let's talk about NCDC, a main topic here. We took a long time to kind of get to NCDC, but I think it's important. So for those who don't know, NCDC is part of USPHL as an organization.
Yeah.
Within the US, you have Tier 1, which is USPHL. You have Tier 2, which is on the USA Hockey sanctioned is North American Hockey League. And then on the side here, which is considered Tier 2, it's not pay to play. It's tuition free with NCDC, but it's part of an organization called USPHL that is not USA Hockey sanctioned. Which what is that? If you were going to explain that, what does that mean to be not USA Hockey sanctioned for you?
To be honest with you, I don't really know the exact difference between a sanctioned league and a non-sanctioned league. The difference might be that you have to pay to play here. But that's
so explain the difference though between USPHL Premier and NCDC. You don't have what so if you're playing in the null, you don't pay billet fees, you don't pay team fees, you don't pay for equipment.
Yeah.
Right. So it's basically free to play, but you're still going to have spending money. When you're coming over, take last year, if you got an offer in the EHL, the Eastern Hockey League, which is Tier 3, which is pay to play, the full boat tuition may be $10,000-$12,000 to play for a team, maybe plus billet fees. In the USPH, which is kind of how it is on the USPHL Premier side and Elite. So you have USPHL Elite, which is the bottom, Premier, and then NCDC, which is the top. But there's a big difference in the cost between NCDC and USPHL Premier, correct?
That's right. So I don't have to pay anything to play in the NCDC. The only thing I have to pay for is the billet fee.
What about equipment, which is different by team, I think?
It's different for every team. We don't have to pay for any equipment. We got helmets, gloves, pants. And I mean, if we were to buy other equipment of that, of course, we need to pay it for ourselves.
What about sticks?
We actually have gotten some sticks, but we haven't received them yet. But we're supposed to get some sticks. But I know that most of the guys, they're not going to play with them because, you know, some people prefer one stick and some people prefer another stick.
So here's kind of how this is how I look at USA Hockey sanction versus there's protection, there's bureaucracy with USA Hockey and there's when you're not USA Hockey sanction, teams can kind of do a little bit whatever they want to. So there's a little bit less consistency. So you got to be careful with that. And you know, not all organizations are created equal, so to speak. You have owners of these teams that they're not associations like Sweden. They're not run by boards. This is an owner that owns this team who pays for the team, and they charge, you know, for people to come and watch, and they have sponsors but they also charge a certain amount for players. And sometimes you have, you know, an organization, and I'm not sure how it is with Islanders. Do they have their own USPHL team as well?
We have the NCDC team, we have the Premier team, and we have an Elite team as well. So we have three teams. But Premier and Elite are playing at a different location, so we don't. The only time we meet them is essentially if we take the bus together to away games if they're playing at the same place.
Yeah, and you know, you have sometimes, you know, if you have ownership that may have, you have tuition payment, and some of that goes towards paying for this team as well. But pretty much everybody knows, but it can be a little bit of not all organizations are above board and do things right. The challenge can be for players that pay to play, and then there's no guarantee that they're going to get a spot. There's no guarantee they're going to get ice time, and let's say they leave, and then they have a hard time getting the money back because there's no body above them to be able to appeal to a certain degree. So you got to be careful in those instances.
I think another difference between a USA Hockey sanctioned league and a non-sanctioned league is the insurance policy or insurance thing, because I have to pay for an international insurance. So all in all, playing NCDC, it isn't completely free because I have to pay for insurance. So,
but on the other hand, in the USA Hockey, the insurance policy that being part of USA Hockey is not really that good of an insurance policy.
That is true. That is
true. Especially for an international player who you got to be careful with that. And that's the kind of steps that you want to be cognizant about of, all right, what if I have a really bad injury and my Swedish health insurance doesn't cover my $100,000 medical bill that I got at a U.S. surgery center,
Yeah, that's true.
So that kind of stuff. So talk about so you haven't been in a situation where you billet before, and we saw your billet dog that came and visited. So talk about where you live, or do you have a roommate? Do you have multiple people living there in a house, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I live with a family of 5 people. I have 3 kids, and I also live with a teammate. But we have a very good living situation. I know that a lot of people might have a situation that's worse than we have. We live in a basement. We got our own kitchen, toilet, shower. We're pretty self-sufficient in the basement. We got our own fridge, freezer, so we can cook our food, and we don't really need to be in the house. If you understand what I mean. Of course we are, because we're eating dinner together. And
how is that? Yeah, how is that situation from not being in that situation in Sweden, living at home?
I think it's of course it's a little bit different, of course. You're living in another family's house, but at the same time, with the situation that we have, me and my teammate, it is like we're living in an apartment, and we're having dinner with another family.
Yeah. How's the relationship though? Because you have kids that are, and a family that is a hockey vested family. Yeah. How is that to be welcomed in? What was your first impression of the U.S. family welcoming you in?
I mean, it was a good impression. I still think it's a good situation. We, of course, the first month and all that, it's a little bit of a honeymoon phase. Yeah, like every psychological and all that. So after that, you're gonna go for a period when it's gonna be a little bit harder, and you just have to accept that, because the differences might come up to the surface.
Yeah.
But if you just keep good communication and just keep a good relationship going between everybody in the family, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
And so far, I haven't had any problems, and I won't have any in the future. I'm pretty sure of.
Do you have your own driver? How do you get to the rink and stuff? Do they take you, or do you have a car?
So my teammate has a car, and that's the thing. They pair us up with people that has a car that can take us to and from the rink, and that's the thing with international players, because they know that we're not going to have a car here.
Yeah, but there is another Swede, Max Lundgren, that is also part of the team.
Yeah, we got 2 other Swedes on the team. It's me, Max Lundgren, and Albin Reinersson. Both of them are coming from the north of Sweden.
Yeah,
we're not living together, but it's fun to talk some Swedish and have a good time with the Swedish people in the locker room.
Yeah,
it feels a little bit more like home when you have a few Swedes on the team.
Yeah. So let's round up and talk about NCDC and your experience now. It looked like that you've had a pretty good start so far in this season.
Yeah, thank you.
16 games, 13 points, not too bad.
Not too bad.
As a defenseman.
As a defenseman, and I think that my role primarily has been a defensive D-man. So it's fun to score some points and all that. And I think that if people look at my elite prospects, they're going to say that NCDC is a bad league because I think I had 2 points in 23 or 22 games in J20 regional. So I've never been a point scorer, but it's fun to do that. I think NCDC is.
So the word got to me that there's nothing but positive words from your coach, and specifically about your hard work. So just want to say that.
Yeah, I'll take that with me. I think that's every player needs to know that as long as you work hard, as long as you do the things you're supposed to do, as you listen to all the advice that you get from different people and put it together, and it's gonna work out.
So how do you describe the level of NCDC versus J20 region?
It's an interesting question. We Swedes, we've talked about it a little bit, and we say that it's a different play of hockey. That's the main thing. It's a smaller rink. The play is faster. You don't have as much time, and I would say it's also more physical. Like the forwards, they are continuing with the checks that they're gonna take on you. If you play the puck, you just gotta be ready to take a hit right after. And it's more you put a puck glass out, boards out, and go from there. In Sweden, it's more like you play around, you try to keep the puck in the team, but you can't really do that here because if you do it too much, you try to be too cute with the puck, you're gonna lose it eventually.
Yep.
So that's the main difference. I would say the hockey play is different. Other than that, I think that more teams here are more competitive. Like we talked about before with Segeltorp, we weren't very competitive in J20 regional. We lost every game almost. We don't have those kind of teams here. Like every game is a hustle, every game is a close one.
Yeah.
I know this weekend we went out to Utica. It's about a 4-hour bus ride, and the first game we lost 4-3 in overtime. Close game, we were up 3-1 with some time remaining, and they came back, scored an OT goal. And yesterday we won 4-3 in a close game as well. So it can switch quickly. I know that I think it was the first game of the season, we were up 1-0, and they scored with half a second remaining of the game, won it in OT. So I think that's the main difference. Like it's closer games, you have more competitive teams, more competitive players, it's more physical. And yeah, you maybe play more out of chance. You hope that the puck is going to bounce your way sometimes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you make a mistake, the other team is going to capitalize on it much more efficiently than in Sweden. I would say, like, if you lose the puck behind the net, it's going to come another guy and they're going to score, or at least get a really good scoring opportunity out of it.
So I'm looking at the, if you pull up NCDC on Elite Prospects, you now have 3 divisions, which the teams in the mountain divisions were moved up from USPHL Premier.
That is correct.
This year.
Yeah, this year. We
had the head scout for Pueblo Bulls on several months ago, and kind of talking about those guys out there. But you don't play those teams on a regular basis, right?
We do not. We haven't played them at all. We're not going to play them at all during the regular season.
So you only have 6 teams in your division, which is Atlantic, and then you have the New England. Do you play the New England teams? Yeah,
so we only play the New England teams during showcases. That's also a thing that's different from Sweden. NCDC and the NAL, and I don't know if the USHL has that as well, but we have showcases. So that's a lot of teams come together in one place, and you have scouts that come to that place, and they can see a lot of teams at the same time, which is very good for them. So we've been to two showcases, one in the close area, and we went down to Jersey one weekend to play a few games. So that's the only time we played the New England teams. Other than that, we're only gonna the Atlantic teams. Other than that, we're only gonna play the New England division teams up until the playoffs.
I see. But and so, which means that in the fall you may play. So the Islanders may play the Hitmen 4 times in the fall.
I think the playoff format is that we're gonna play the New England division. We're gonna play for one spot, one playoff, and it's the same for the Atlantic division and the Mountain division. And then the New England division and Atlantic division winners, they're gonna play like a conference final, Eastern Conference final, if you would call it that, or a semifinal. And the winner of that goes to the Dineen Cup final against one of the Mountain division teams.
I see.
So that's the playoff format. So the only time we're going to play against a Mountain division team would be in the Dineen Cup final.
And I see. So you guys are currently, you're currently in the second spot. You played 16 games. And what's interesting, this kind of messed me up about Atlantic versus New England, because you have the PAL Junior Islanders and you have the Islanders Hockey Club.
That is correct.
And that's when I was looking at Atlantic. But, those guys are more around the New York area, and you guys are more around the Boston area, right?
Yeah, that is correct. I would also say that they have further distance to go to their games. I'm not really sure. I think that's the case. We have a closer ride to away games.
Yeah.
We got two long rides.
Yeah, Utica is a little bit of a trip, right? Yeah,
we got Utica and we got Twin City. Those two are the only times we're taking the bus right
now.
Yeah. And another difference from Sweden is that it's a lot more professional here regarding the how you watch the games. Like, you have announcers on every game, and you have so that's a little bit special as well.
Yeah. And so how's that been a little bit to being this? I know on the roster there's a lot of imports on that roster, but because there are interviews and after start of the game and that kind of stuff. How's it been being the Swede who's not necessarily sticking out? And if you met, so did you meet Kevin Marek Snurien?
I met him, yes.
All right, so Kevin would not have any problem. He would say, "Give me the mic." Maybe you're a little bit different in the aspect of being in the limelight, being interviewed, and that kind of stuff.
I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. I think it's a fun part of the game. It's fun to experience.
But it's different. You didn't get that in Segertorp or Nacka.
Yeah, it's different, and I think that has to do with the league organization, because the A20 regional or Sweden overall, we don't have a league organization that's responsible for the whole league. Here we have the USPHL that gives out weekly honors like Team of the Week and Team of the Month and so on. That's a little bit special, but it's a fun time, and if you get that spotlight on you, you know that you've done something good. And the only thing you can do is keep building on that.
So what's next? All right, you got this season. You're going to bust your butt to kind of play hard and so on.
Yeah.
But I know in the back of your mind is that you're hoping a college can call in and say, "Hey, I like that number so-and-so."
Yeah, of course. I mean, I see the college route as one of the best you can take. You get an education that's really good, and at the same time, you can play hockey at a really high level.
But the realistic, from a realistic standpoint, playing the NCDC, you're not going to get Michigan that is kind of calling at NCDC. I mean, let's be real. They're going to be looking at USHL players, and they don't even look at it at the null. To be frank.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the NCDC, it had a lot of D1 commits a few years ago. The last few years, we haven't had a lot of D1 commits coming out of NCDC. It's mostly D3.
But
that goes a little bit from year to year, and who's playing and all that. So I think, of course, everybody's striving for a D1 commitment.
Yep.
It would be a lie to say that nobody does it. But you have to realize, like, maybe that train has left the station, you know. You can always strive for a good D3 commitment.
But how, so, all right, for you, I mean, the eye of the needle is very narrow for D1 just in general, no matter no matter what league you're playing in. And so how does that make you in your future career plans on going to college in the US versus going to college in Sweden, where it's free in Sweden, and college in the US, you could continue to play college hockey, which would be awesome, but you may have to pay part of the tuition unless you get some type of academic scholarship under the, you know, it's an athletic scholarship, but it's listed as an academic scholarship.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a big part you need to look into. D3, it isn't by any means free, but you can always seek scholarships from Sweden.
Yeah.
If you just look at the right places, you can get the cost down quite good.
Yeah.
And if you have a good talk with the team and the coach, they can also sort some things out, you know.
And I think that if you're looking at teams in the D3 like this, so SUNY Cortland, SUNY, a state university of New York, Cortland, or Syracuse, or not sure, there's a bunch of state schools that are not necessarily the expensive private schools, that the hockey is really good.
Yeah.
And it's not super expensive. It may be, you know, it may not be, you know, Michigan, but it's still a very good level of college hockey that you can experience. So I think my point here is that, you know, it doesn't have to end. And I think that the challenge is going to be going back to Sweden. Yes, you can go to university, but playing Hockeyettan is tough. And to try to go to college and play in Hockeyettan is almost impossible. Now you could go and play in tough situation. You can play in Division 2 and Division 3 and go to university probably without a problem. But the level of commitment to be able to go and take college or university classes in Sweden and get a degree and focus on elite level hockey is very, very difficult because the system is not built that way.
That's correct. So
be able to do that. Gustav Blom is a good example. He's going to RIT now. They can't actually give scholarships from an athletic standpoint, but they have the academic side there as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. If a team wants you, they're gonna sort some things out. They're gonna make sure that things work out the way you want them to work out.
Or you could do like I did. I was lucky enough to get my green card through the lottery, which enabled me to work.
Yeah.
So I paid my way through college out of pocket, but it was a lot of work. But it was fun. All right. Well, it's been fun to talk about. Last two things. So, you know, we have a partnership with Target Aid, and you kind of mentioned it, the team in my heart or organization in my heart that we have. So the reason why we did this is really first year of doing this podcast, it was just kind of not really knowing where it's going. And then when the second year we said, well, how can we have a little bit more purpose behind it? And one of the common denominators of all the guests is that they're coming from a youth organization that, in your case, Segeltorp, that they're all very similar, and you have a lot of volunteers, and they do. What struck me is that there's a lot of fundraising for these small organizations, and you know, they're selling cookies and hot dogs and toilet paper and whatever. And if we can help in any way to put people on the platform to be able to help with fundraising. So Target Aid is that platform. And what we are able to do is partner with guys like you, and on our platform, we don't get anything out of it other than it's good for these clubs to be able to get content, highlight a player that says, this is the team of my heart. Listen to this podcast about my journey and where I am now. And hopefully that can inspire, and it can be talked about within the organization to
Yep.
then also help with fundraising. So which team is the team in your heart?
It's got to be Segeltorp.
Yeah, don't tell me
Yeah.
Nacka now. You would get ostracized.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
But you know, it's we got one of the best youth rinks in a lot of Stockholm. I would say it's one of the nicest rinks, one of the best hockey games in Stockholm, maybe even in Sweden if you can stretch it that far, with the money that the club has. And you know, it's a great club, and you know, that's where I'm gonna spend more time when I come back home.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So last question here is, if you met yourself, so you're 20 now, right? Or 19?
19 now.
19. So you met yourself 2 years earlier at 17. What would you tell yourself, that things you know now that you wish you knew back then?
Things I know now that I wish I knew back then. That's a hard question. I think maybe it's like always try to work hard. Always try to do something extra on the ice. Maybe after practice, do some skating on your own. Do some drills on your own. Always try to do that extra thing that's gonna make you stand out from the rest of the team, rest of the players out there.
Excellent.
I always learned that. I've learned that if you do something for 2 minutes after practice every day, and you have a lot of practices throughout the year, those 2 minutes gonna turn into an hour, 2 hours, if you do them.
Well, the universe have rewarded you when you took that opportunity to go to shooting practice, and see where you are now, and the experiences that you've had just this short period of time, and the relationships that you're building. It's life-changing, really. And I think that's I can certainly empathize with that too, in terms of when the opportunities are laid in front of you, take it. Don't turn it down. Don't defer. Don't wait. Take it. And because it may not ever be presented again. And it's this fork in the road, or like the game Plinko, that you put the disc in here and it pops down and hits all these pegs, and you know, it could bounce this way or it could bounce that way. And if you don't put the disc in the game, if you don't put the coin in the jukebox, if you don't do the things that you need to, you'll miss out. So great advice. All right, Sammy, thanks for jumping on. It's been fun to kind of chat about NCDC. It's been educational. Hopefully people get a little bit of interest. Thank you for Mike to kind of get us hooked up, and plug in for his, if you go to Future Stars Academy and look up the showcase there, I think it's in May. I think they have something in Christmas time, and look that up too. And same thing with Björn Bjurling with BB Goalie Academy. They do a good job, and see where that goes. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you for having me.